Here.
Barb Thomas.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from last month?
I will make a motion to approve the minutes.
I do have a correction.
Oh, wait, John.
I actually read them.
Okay.
Under the Zimmer group, let's see. It's said that I suggest that each letter be illuminated individually. I guess as long as that's clear, not individual letters, but a single panel where the individual letters are routed out.
I can change it, but I literally quoted you from the playback because I was worried
Okay.
after the last time, so I literally quoted you. So I don't know that I'm allowed to change the actual quote,
Okay,
but
well,
I
that's
could
fine.
add clarification.
I need to speak clearer.
Was there
Painted to match, but also to be opaque. It just wasn't clear that it was a solid panel in the next paragraph. I just didn't want the impression to be left that it could be, that the whole panel could be illuminated. So they're usually a solid aluminum panel, or they're panels that are painted on the backside so no light comes through them.
Am I allowed it now?
how to make it?
Are you add as clarification
That
or
is
whatever?
clarification.
Anyway, I just wanted to.
Peter, you're aware of the sign.
Yeah, it's as I understand it, like that box is grandfathered in, and that's an illuminated box, and so.
Right, the panel that goes in the box, it's sort of, you can do it, generally you do an aluminum panel and you route out the letters
Right.
so that only the letters illuminate. That's sort of like the inexpensive way to get the look of individual internally illuminated letters.
Yeah.
Was there any other?
No, I have no.
Okay.
Okay. Do I have a second to approve the minutes with the corrections?
I'll second them.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. New business?
All right. So our first applicant for tonight is 25 North Fort Thomas Avenue, which is presented by Lily Acree. Am I saying that correctly? Lily Acree? Yes. So, which is the restaurant building, the former BB&T building in the center of town. The applicants at 25 North Fort Thomas Avenue are requesting modifications including color changes of the building and use of buttons for the windows. The floor is all yours.
Good evening. You guys probably remember we were here, I don't know, about 5 weeks ago.
Yep.
Something like that. And we had a good conversation about our project, and we wanted to see what it would look like if we weren't painting brick, or if we were painting brick. Could we compare those two things? And also for comparison, existing windows versus new windows with different stick patterns in them or no patterns in them. Because we had suggested that in our proposal, we were looking to paint the existing building the light white color, and we were going to be replacing the windows in it, so we were showing that we were embracing the idea of having full glass lights and no sticks or muntins in those windows. So what we prepared was several different iterations and renderings for your guys' consideration. And the first page that you're seeing, view number 1 at the top, is the original sort of condition of the building, which is unpainted brick and double hung windows that are represented with sticking that is 2 over 3 wide in each of those sashes. Below that represents a proposed alternative that would simply not paint the building, but have different windows with perhaps a different sticking in those sashes, which would be more of a 2/2 proposition, which might be a little more modern, but also sort of throw some shade towards what was there in the past. The next page of drawings is simply that alternative of new windows with modified sticking that is 2/2 in the sashes, with two views, one from the very sidewalk looking directly ahead onto that building, and one that is a little more in the patio green space out front, with consideration of our addition that was attached to this building, which is our sort of light-filled, glassy conservatory, we'll call it.
That's to the left.
That is correct. The darker building is the addition. So you can see the French doors with transoms above it, and the fireplace there's a double-sided or two fireplaces that were there onto that patio. And then the last sheet of drawings that we have represent our original proposal, which shows what it would look like from the street, same vantage point, painted with new windows without sticks, and then conversely the same view that shows the addition attached or affixed to the existing building. And that's the paint scheme and the original windows that we had proposed. The other pages in your packet, those were earlier sort of renditions that are also in there, but these 3 pages that we just covered at the beginning are really what the meat of the bone is today. So any questions you guys have or comments?
I like the look. The brick and the 2-on-2 windows.
So, but it should be, I think it's important for you to state
There's
your preference
two
of what it
things
is
that
that you're.
I think our
wanting.
preference would be to paint everything lights. That would be our preference. As far as doing these studies, I think our preference would actually be to modify the windows with sticks in a 2/2 pattern for the sashes rather than having no sticks. I think that's our preference. And we don't have that rendered in this packet,
Yeah.
but we did render it, and I have one copy of it.
Understood. So your preference would be you said the 2/2
It
with
would
the
be
muntins. Or
the
the
very
4/4.
first page would be the window proposition from the
Right.
lower rendering.
Right.
But it would be the color
painted.
scheme on the third page, which would be the lighter sort of color, the white.
So I guess I'd ask to the committee about, with the images here presented to demonstrate the difference between painting the brick versus preserving the brick, which, we were called, the conversation previously was the fact that there is some verbiage in the guidelines about if there is the opportunity to not paint existing, or if existing brick isn't painted, that there should be an opportunity to not paint it. Their preference is to paint it, which, we can go through the explanation previously of why that was. It's more of a holistic view of the property, inclusive of the walls that are presented here in the foreground as being sort of one concept throughout. And so I guess I'd ask for us to evaluate whether or not demonstrating this with and without the paint, do we feel comfortable with their preference of wanting to paint the brick, seeing this, the comparison renderings?
I just think it looks warmer, more inviting with the natural brick. What's your feeling on paint? Why do you want to paint the brick?
I think it's easiest to see it on the third sheet. And it really was to extend sort of the notion of inside to out. There's a blur between them, and it's not inside we're painted white, outside we're brick. And then the patio, the walls and that were all very light color painted, stucco walls. So the idea was to make the biggest room of the whole property that sort of patio system and roll out the red carpet to the sidewalk, homogenizing that and making it more of a background color and not so loud, considering all the rest of the brick that's sort of in proximity. That's the tactic we would rather homogenize that and make a complete sort of wrapper out of it than have necessary sort of long range, because we're never gonna be able to recreate that brick on those walls. So we're like, let's go the other route. Keep the slate, paint the brick, let the detail of it become ornament rather than decoration with sort of the multicolored, multifaceted sort of industry that exists there today. And then, you know, it also kind of looks like a bank still when we don't paint it. It looks like Citibank, Bank right down the street, like on the other side of the square or the street. So we're just trying to say, we've done something different.
Yeah.
And this was a way that we could do that. So our preference is looking at white.
I do still like the brick best. I just think it's a nice architectural building, and I think once you change your sign, you know, do your signage, and, which we haven't seen those packages, you know, you can, I don't think it's gonna look like a bank. But I did not envision, even if you kept it natural brick, that your walls out front were ever gonna be brick. I still thought it was gonna be like a shed. And I still feel, even on here, and I drove by and took more pictures tonight, you know, just with that cream, light gray building next door and those walls, and then the concrete drive, it just feels
building
like
to the
it's to the right.
This building to the left is
Building to the left is brick and
red brick
green.
and kind of the same color, dark
It's green.
green.
Yeah. I've got it in one of the pictures, if you want to see it. So I am still in favor of the brick. I think the addition and everything looks fine. I think the windows tying through that color, I think the 2 over 2, I don't have an issue with that at all. Do you have a site plan?
I don't know if you have one here. Kevin does. It hasn't changed at all.
I just
Yeah,
don't
I
remember
don't have it.
seeing one this, with all the, it just feels so much bigger than when I drove by. I'm like, gosh, there's not much room there, but I'm sure there's plenty for what you're showing, but just it's for me to get a better feel. That's
Sure. I'm sorry. I didn't bring it because
You're fine.
computer.
no problem.
My feelings.
Yeah, I mean, we need to be able to, basically, I mean, where we're standing is can we approve painting the brick, right? And then there's the second part, which is on the preference of muntins, which their preference is to go with the simplified muntin division versus the muntins that emulate what is there today. So, I mean, I will state my personal take on it is that I would be fine with the painting. I would be fine with the simplified muntins, but I do think that it needs the muntins. I don't think that no muntins looks quite right.
That's why our preference would be to do the 2 overs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm split on the painting of the building. I agree with the 2 over 2.
Mhm.
That would help tremendously, and it will tie in your add-on with the muntins that will be over in there as well. I realize that if we paint the brick, it will pull it away from the fact that everybody knows it has a bank, and it'll kind of downplay that, though I do in a way hate painting brick because it is a unique character of the building, and obviously we want to try to keep as much of the historic character that we can of our buildings. So I don't know, I'm on the fence, so I can
What
go
does
either way.
it say, what does the verbiage say, the painting?
I believe that it says that painting of brick, if it has been unpainted, or if it is not been painted, is discouraged.
Right.
That's what it
Correct.
says.
Right.
Now, this non-contributing building, it's brick, I would suggest we check that.
conversation.
Oh,
Right.
Considering the historic nature of the neighborhood.
So I guess I am okay with their request to paint it.
Well, then we'll take
So
this
we're
as a
split
try.
2-2.
We'll get a vote, and then we'll know if we're going to miss it. If I will make a motion to approve the building painted with the simplified muntins. Do I have a second?
Mark, real quick, we do need to open it up for
Oh, okay.
anyone in the gallery who would
Yeah.
like to make any comments.
I just wanted you to make sure you saw the letter from Rick Riley that's in there.
Yeah.
Rick mentioned that he approves of, or likes the cause of the building being painted.
Okay.
Yeah. Probably differentiate that building from his.
Right.
And,
And the big thing is for us as the owners is that we really don't want it to look like the Fort Thomas building thing. That's the biggest thing.
Have you
Well,
ever
we'll keep this-
considered altering the entrance?
We are,
No,
yes.
I mean the pediment. You know, creating a better sense of entry into the restaurant, unless you don't want that. to be-
Because it's still a bank looking building. I mean, it's a beautiful building, no doubt.
Well, I mean, it's a classical building,
Right.
is the bottom line, whether it's a bank or an office or anything
Right.
else. But I feel like there's an opportunity, if you felt that strongly about that, to change that architecture and that entrance. Because I'm still, and this is just the developer side of me, concerned about the signage. This building does not, that I can see, accommodate a good location for signage.
Yeah, we're not putting signage on the building, and we don't have the signage design because we're here to talk about the building first, so the signage will be born out of the written back, I would assume, but we're gonna keep it low and it's gonna be integrated into the garden beds and stuff like that, versus on the building, because it doesn't belong on this building, based on the hierarchy, the symmetry of the entrance, the sort of louvered and vented cupolas that are up on there. That's why we chose, like, okay, this building is very colonial and classical, but we can't have it be stiff and sort of colonial and regimented and fortified like it is. To try to loosen this thing up, paint it white, make it more approachable, keep the slate, and embrace those sort of qualities of the materials that the building was built on, but not necessarily let it be so robust and sort of fortification. So that's why we chose to make
I
it
think,
white and bring it out into the gardens.
With everything that, you have out front, and it looks like that's landscaping, I think another bed up between the walkway around the building.
So there's patios that are on level with the interior floors of the restaurant that are underneath the pergolas that we're adding in the face of it to again extend the inside to the outside. And then you have a couple of risers that take you down to a mid sort of terrace level of lawn and landscape. And then you have a couple more risers that get you down to the sidewalk. So we're really trying to occupy and activate what was never active before. It was just this little sidewalk that went to that door, and you
I
throw
just-
your money in,
yeah.
and that's
I feel like with all of that added, the focus is no longer like it is right now. Boom, this building there, with, like you said, with the skinny little sidewalk going up. There's so much more that's breaking up that facade with the pergola, the outside lights, the string lights that you're showing. And the addition, I feel like it's still gonna feel very new and different.
It's going to be spectacular. Painting it white allows that building to kind of become the background so that it's sort of that glowing lantern with its punched openings going on the hill, and then it just extends everything out. So it's just really good.
Is there any other questions from the gallery?
We can't see it, sweetie, and I don't know how we can ever question. Is there any way we can see it? Thanks. That's a good one.
Happy to share my copy as well. I've looked at it.
Thank you. Yeah, I am too. Thank you. I'll just throw this one.
Not being anyone else.
I like that.
Going first three. Page three. First three, yeah, the third page is the one that's
So this first page right here was what I was talking about, like, this is the existing building, unpainted with its original windows, and this is new windows, no new sticking in it, and then as you make your way through that is new sticks, unpainted, and then the next page, which is 3, shows the building painted white with windows that don't have any sticks, but we were suggesting we keep the building white, and then we would keep the sticks in the windows at like 2 over 2. That's correct.
They were just stuck together. I voted for Amy. Can we take a vote?
That's what he said, that's what it's gonna be.
No.
Right,
Versus
yeah.
being very frosty.
It's right over here, I know. Right.
We could just bring it back. Is there any, now that the gallery has gotten to see the proposed photos and designs, is there any questions, comments?
Why would we let him paint it? It's gorgeous painting. I think the other red district is as ugly as can be. It looks like the old bank with stuff around it. Make it a new Fort Thomas is what I'm thinking. I think it's a much better painted than it is. It looks like we tried to build around the old Fort Thomas Bellevue Bank. That's what I would say. That's my opinion.
Anyone else from the gallery? I know for the paint. Someone really likes that, the paint look of the building.
You know, I think the natural brick looks awesome and more with the character of the town. I personally, I mean, if this is the guidelines to go by, I'm just reading your guidelines. I don't know if there's anything that says yay or nay definitely on it. I just don't know.
If there is no other questions or comments from the gallery, we will close that section. Anyone? Alrighty, the board may make a motion.
Okay. So I'm going to make a motion to approve the applicant's preference of painting the brick with the simplified muntins. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second it.
Okay. So all in favor?
Aye.
Nay. Nay. Aye. So we have a split. So we can't agree on that. Do we have any other motions? I mean, we certainly can, right? I mean, we can have somebody else propose another vote.
Gloria, I see those wheels turn.
Well, actually, I'm not, I don't know. I feel like it's A or B. I just, I'm not sure how to
Well, I mean,
find something in between or whatever.
I guess the B, if there's not a consensus on being agreeable to painting it, then and if it's to not be painted, then there's this other layer of sort of a disparity between the treatment of the building and treatment of the site. I mean, the site and its proposed design. And now, okay, I do need to ask for clarification. So the walls in this design, are they concrete, hard concrete, just rough? They're not brick or masonry?
They're not masonry.
Right.
They are concrete walls that are arched and painted.
So if the building were to to remain the brick that it is, can it be agreeable that the site walls are parged concrete? Do they stay as that color? Do they get painted?
What is merged?
So parged would be basically kind of rubbing it so that it's a little bit smoother. If you're painting it, then it's going to just be a,
Yeah, if you just paint concrete, it looks like.
too many
like
pockets
this
and
floor.
holes.
It looks like this floor,
The
right?
floor.
But if you parge concrete walls, you put a Portland cement stucco essentially over top of it, and it's sort of a rough sand pebble finish, and then we would paint it. I think if we had a dark addition, white walls, brick building, I'd be like, well, let's paint the walls black then, or dark. And I think that's just different. That's not as light and airy and seasonal as we wanted it to be. So I don't know what color we would paint those walls with. I would hate to try to paint it brick color. to
No,
match.
for sure. I would maybe ask you if the decision was that the building is to not be painted, would your approach still be the same with the walls?
I don't think we can afford exposed masonry walls.
Right.
So yes, I think our approach would be the same. We just have to figure out what color it is.
Well, we do need to have a motion on the project because it's not really appropriate to just put it off unless we have justification more so. You know, maybe- let's just ask another question then to, I guess, to the board. Keeping the brick, what is the feeling about trellises being, are the trellises natural? Is it just natural wood?
Yes.
Yeah. About the trellis and natural wood in front of the classical building. Is that the way that you would want to see that treated?
Would you see it that much?
I'm asking because I think if that is if we keep the brick, then to me it seems like the trellis in a natural tone seems somewhat strange.
Yes.
It would seem more appropriate then that you would want to go with trim as well, or whatever the trim is, that it would be treated the same as the trim versus a wood trellis sitting in front of a classical building. That to me is a little unusual.
Well, we already have the addition. It's going to be, I'm assuming, a dark stucco.
Yeah, it's combination of camera siding and art painting, so it's
Painted dark. So there
Dark
again,
blue? Is that a very dark blue? Or-
No, it's a very warm, dark gray. Very similar to Rick Bradley's gray that's on the release.
because we try to keep it as a traditional, then that type of addition would, to me, would look different too. It would have a different finish to it, more detail. You know, it would look like something that was added on 50, 60 years ago, as opposed to this, which is now looks more modern. So I think it works then with painting the building white. And it just looks more as a cohesive whole that way. So, and I understand the hatred of painting brick. I think it's a terrible thing to do to brick because it will create long-term maintenance headaches for you. But because the brick will be there forever, but the paint won't be. It'll start coming off. But that's something you'll have to deal with.
For me, architecturally, the addition, I like the fact that it's very different. Because if it's not
Juxtaposing to the
identical,
building.
it needs to be far apart.
So we could do a slate addition and masonry and all that, so it had to be very different to your point. Yeah. that's what we would expect with sort of the historic structure, anyways, is not to try to be compatible with it from a scale of that standpoint. Don't try to emulate it. Right? Or copy it.
I mean, Mark, I do kind of agree with your point. It might be better to, if it's not painted, to paint that arbor to match the addition. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm just trying to, if, you know, with leaving it as is, and I guess I should defer to actually asking you, as the applicant, like, if this, the decision of the committee is that the brick, you know, we can't agree on your request to paint it, and so the, you know, decision is to leave it, what is your preference on the treatment of the trellis? Is it as you presented it here, that you leave it natural, or that you would consider that maybe something you might need to just reevaluate?
I think we would reevaluate it, to be honest with you. I think we were using natural, we'll call it cedar tone wood to warm up the whole place.
Right.
So that was the idea about it.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily mean that we wouldn't have perhaps the shading items of that trellis being wooden, but the structure that they're supported by, the beams, the columns, and that be painted so that they're recognizable as these are not original or compatible with unpainted brick.
Right.
So it might be that sort of proposition, but I mean, we have to, again, look at the grounds and that, because I think before it was, there's two modes you can take. You can take that building and do everything else opposite of that.
Right.
Or you can paint the building with everything else around it and tie it all together. So it's just a different tack.
I hear you.
But if the brick is left natural and you paint the columns, I think that would look very nice. Are there 4 columns out front, 5 columns? 6? Looks like 6.
Did you have something to say?
Yeah, I just wonder, I mean, is it the color that's controversial? Is it, what, I don't understand why it's so, you know, someone's eye likes paint, someone's eye doesn't. I like a blue front door, my neighbor likes a red front door. I don't understand what the big thing is here that makes it so black and white for you all. You know, I know it looks like Lori doesn't like painted brick or something. You do, you don't.
I absolutely love painted brick. Grew up in a White House, covered White Houses, white buildings. I'm trying to take my personal preference out of it and follow the recommendations
But the recommendations
that, you know, say,
are very vague.
well, but it's pretty clear if you read, you know, because these are not the recommendations. We don't have that many buildings in town that are, you know, unique in some way. The Flemish brick pattern is uber expensive to build, which is why you don't see it very often. It's a very nice looking building.
All the details still going to show through, except for the color. I mean, it's got the
Well,
trim
but
around the windows.
that's
it's
the
top.
whole thing to the Flemish, because it's side view and the ends, the corners. But be that it is. I just feel that this building has enough significance and beauty that it is worth preserving that. If it was a similar building that
It's a
maybe
bank.
was just plain old red brick,
I mean, it's
I'd be right jumping on the boat.
just the bank. That's,
It's what?
please? It just looks like bank. And it's, you know, it's not called, you know, the bank inn, whatever. It's not. It's you know, and we're looking for a warm feeling, a comforting feeling. And right now that isn't. Yes, is it a wonderful brick job? Yes, it is. Will it still look good painted? I believe, yes, it will. And it's the desire of us to have it that way. And it just seems like it's, and nothing says, I mean, what if I said we want to paint it yellow? I could see someone saying no to that, or pink, whatever, you know. I mean, but this is a very comforting, please?
I'm not making my feeling about it based on the color of the paint at all. I'm basing it on what is there.
So I would like to say that this building is a non-contributing building. That's a fact. And it is a nice brick job. It has detail to it. We chose to paint it white because it is so rigorous in its detail that I would suggest that it's more decoration almost when we consider the overall site that we were developing. That's why we chose to paint it white. The guidelines say that it's discouraged. What I've heard some folks talk about is paint won't last, the durability of that. That's probably because people paint brick. They just go to Lowe's, they buy paint, they just slap it on the wall. You get breathable paint and you do it how it's supposed to be done, that paint will last. There's plenty of historic cities and that have painted brick buildings as part of their thing. So it is a decision. And I do think that it says it's discouraged, but it doesn't say it's not allowed or it is allowed. So I think it is a hard task in front of you to make a decision as to whether or not we can paint this building.
I mean, and I agree that there are circumstances where a building may lend itself to be better, you know, to be painted.
We're at a difficult spot because we don't have a ability to have a tiebreaker vote. That's awesome. That'll solve it. And I haven't had an offer of another motion. So I don't know where that means. If it's like we need to table it until we have a ability to split the vote, or have another, another proposal. I don't know if this is in any way a roadblock for your progress on a simple issue of paint versus no paint, if that in fact does hold you up to your overall progress on the project. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know at this point.
I mean, I ask in for your, as a client, architect, submission for permits and everything else, is the decision on this in any way really critical to those other steps?
Building department does not care whether it's black or it's white or it's
Right.
pink or it's green. I think it might have some material consequences that we would consider if it's one versus the other. Just consideration of walls, trusses, and stuff like that. But the building itself, still make our way, get our permit. So, let me ask you a different question. The other board members that are here or that aren't here, are they able to be here to cast a vote next time, or?
I don't, that's
Because I don't know.
understood.
Is Kevin a voting person?
We should have had 5.
Because I don't know if we have quorum here tonight. This could all just be, because it could be tied. So.
Oh, we are tied.
Right.
So I don't know exactly what to do about that.
We could table it.
And that's where I'm asking this.
Vote it
And if we
next time.
suggested tabling it because we aren't getting another option, and we're split, we might not be split if we had 5 on next month.
And I don't think there's anything that would hang our permit from being approved and allow us to start putting stuff on the ground based on color. But that's just because I haven't seen it come through and say, oh, it's dependent on.
No, it should. I just am asking that just as a courtesy of I understand that there's a need to continue your work, and I don't want the idea of tabling it to be, in fact, obstructing your ability to continue your progress on the project.
Short straw. Some straws.
I do have a question. Is the site plan, is that?
It was all part of
It
the
was part of the original application.
Okay, did it have dimensions and everything?
that we had full complement of construction documents in that zoning ordinance, so it was all.
You don't have the rest of the file.
I do not have the rest of the file page. We do not.
Just curious.
Well, I'll make a motion that we table this particular application until next month's meeting.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Will next month's meeting be a week earlier or anything, again, because of the holidays?
We will have to see about that. So, we're really tough. So, looks like alrighty. Moving along.
Next one.
We have 1201 South Fort Thomas Avenue. Applicant is Jeannie Rauch with Imagine Designs. Applicant for 1201 South Fort Thomas Avenue. The applicants are requesting approval for a rock holder sign located on the front left of the building with the water feature. We do have Jeff here that is representing. So,
Sorry, I picked up your phone by the button and.
All right, I'll do the best I can, it keeps spinning on me. But I'm gonna show you the rock first, okay? So, there's the rock, okay?
it should be in their package. Jeff.
Yeah. Is it on there?
No, that's just a picture.
Okay, that's the picture of the product, but that's the picture. Yeah, it keeps. Okay. Oh, you got it. Okay. And then this is what's going on it. And this is what's going on it. Okay. And the stone is approximately 3.5 tall and a little less than 6 feet long. It's smaller than the sign that the Stories had at their fence. It's a little smaller. It's not going to be sitting up. If you got a picture in front of the building, it's going to be on the second layer. Look at the picture. If you got the picture, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And this is the finished product. If you look to the left, there's a magnolia, and then there's a boulder that's going in between those, so it's only going to be about this high off the ground. So it's going to be standing lower than the ground. Okay, so it's up in the air. It's not even going to be, because of the rock, it's going to be about 8 inches above. But as you're driving, and it's going to be facing, going towards the Y.
So where's it gonna be, right here?
No, right there, right in that area, on the other side of the, yeah, right over this way. Right in this area, right there, okay? Yeah. You know, I think that fits everything with every sign that I see going up the street, you know, not as big as the Ys. But, you know, it's really kind of blends into the landscape a lot with all the stonework and everything. I think it'll be really nice. Facing only way, yes, that's the bottom, just like that. It's only faced one way, it doesn't have double sided. So it's going into the hill and then looking out.
Okay. This is etched in
It'll be engraved in and then painted black.
and then painted.
Yes, the
Not the
stone
whole
will
area,
stay
just the
natural.
letters.
The stone will stay natural, but the letters will be painted black.
You'll feel fine. Okay.
Very nice.
Does the size fit the sign ordinance then?
I thought it did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kevin went over it, looked at it.
It's fine. Okay.
Is there any questions from the board members for Jeff on this?
No.
Alrighty.
Did you tell us last time that all that mulch was gonna be rocks?
I told you it was going to be rocks. Yes, everything was going to be stone. Yeah, no maintenance other than the 2 trees. That's it. And a little bit around there. Yes, it is. Yeah, I used a bigger rock. You know, it's really big, so people
Yeah.
don't want to go grab it. So that makes a difference when you're out in those neighborhoods. It really does. They look at that. Kids don't want to go over and grab it and throw it or something. So they're little rocks. Remember when I was a kid. Oh, almost ready. So, Is that good?
That's good.
Is there any,
Make a motion?
hold on, we got,
Questions?
any
questions
questions, comments from the gallery? I already know what Sharon's gonna
We
ask.
haven't seen it.
Doesn't matter, Sharon's gonna agree with me.
Thank you.
Design?
Come on. Jeff, tell me, what
Yeah.
are you doing this?
This is the bottom. I gotta show you guys.
This is the bank we're talking about?
No, this is not the bank. This is our project down here, down the street.
It's the
South
Southside
side.
Deli.
And we just got done. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I thought this was losing.
So this
Okay.
is totally different. And this is the stone that's going in there for the sign. So that's kind of what that is.
What's that gonna be?
It is, just an office building.
Just an office?
Yep, just office building.
That was great. You want to see this?
No, I'm good with that.
Thank you.
I just drove by it. Looks great. There's a little water coming down.
Any other questions?
Daryl, we should just hit this.
Souvenir. Souvenir.
Thank you for showing.
I will need these back just because there's personal information on those. So,
Well, I sent mine back.
they thought it was. Is that the? Oh, I just missed it. Oh, those just because there's personal information stuff on the packets, so thank you all. Is there any other questions from the gallery? Comments? Any?
It's a nice room.
It looks great. Your whole building.
All right.
I'll make a motion that we approve the application as submitted.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I forgot to mention earlier, if you are with a certain project, you are more than welcome to leave after your project has been
Before I
completed.
go, one thing.
Yes, Jim.
Please let them paint that building. 5 years of architecture, landscape architecture. That's beautiful. It's a new, like I said, it's a new Fort Thomas. We're going to a different direction. That was just a bank, and it was an ugly building from when I was a kid. So even Mr. Bradford used to take us around Highlands Architecture, and he hated that building. And I always remember that.
Comment with Jeff on that. I'm sorry. I kept my mouth shut while the
I hope one
gentleman
day they make it better. I
in
was
the
an
art.
architecture teacher, and I'm not lying. That's the gosh honest truth.
So I'm Jeannie Rauch, I'm from MacKnight. And, you know, I will say though that, you know, just something, food for thought on the color, you know, or paint, period. I grew up in construction background, father owned brothers in Dayton, Ohio, 50 some years. And I understand the concern of painting brick, I really do. And if my father knew that I was painting brick today for different projects, he would probably roll over. But with that being said, we are in the 21st century. White is the new bright color. It's clean, it's fresh, it's inviting. It creates a clean palette. And with leaving it as it is, my concern, first concern is for this gentleman or company, whoever is redoing it. I've done zero research. I live in Taylor Mill, not Fort Thomas. Is that, will it be successful? Will it stand out? Will it attract, you know, people that are going through town?
It's a big part.
And you want it to be successful, I know you do. So just, you know, contemplate that color, you know, and the painting of it. With the brick today, the products that are out there, I think somebody mentioned Lowe's, Home Depot. Yes, you can't go there to buy your paint if you're gonna paint brick and mortar. There is 20 to 30 year life of it before you ever have to touch it again. And that's what the painter that I use that has been in the industry for 45 years. Was that product around 20 years ago? Probably not. You know, but the products are there today that have staying power. So my 2 cents. Sorry. Whether you want it or not, you got
Jeff's
it.
not paying. Jeff's not paying.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. Moving right along to our final thing on today's agenda, 14 North Fort Thomas Avenue. The applicant, Buchert of American Heritage, is requesting approval to repaint the exterior wood trim, bay windows, and bay accent trim, and storefront and apartment doors. They are also replacing the current sign with one to reflect its new storefront, which is Aesthetics of Northern Kentucky. It will be the same size as the current and the previous sign on it. Chris?
Hi. Good evening. Hi. So let me give you a little background. I know Kevin gave you a handout that I had given him earlier this week. So what transpired between the time of this evening and me producing that handout is we started rethinking the colors that I had given him. So I have a partner on the building, and the green roof was always a sticking point with him. And we had originally thought that that was possibly painted that color at some point in the past. I got a sample of the roof and brought it down, and I took it to my painter, who's a professional, and on further examination, I believe that that color was manufactured into that clay. I don't think that that was painted because we could not get the green to scrape off or come off the surface. We tried. We tried several different things to get that to. It's in there. It's baked into the surface of that clay. So I believe it was manufactured that way.
Yeah.
That being said, painting it would probably be not a wise thing because I feel like it'll just be peeling off of there in a year or two, especially with like a terracotta-like material like that. So we've decided to backtrack on painting that roof the terracotta color, and what we now think we would like to do is leave it the green. I'll show you guys what to do. So what we were thinking is, let's just live with the green. And then that being said, you're kind of locked into there's only a few range of colors that you could then put on the doors that are going to kind of complement that. So our inclination is to paint the doors a complementary green, maybe similar to the original. There was an original deep bright green that was on those doors when Laura Bowman came to the building. When Troy Kramer took it over as dentist, I believe the doors were then painted like a blue color, which is what's on there now. Well, we're not crazy about the blue with the green roof. So I brought some paint chips with me, but what our thought was to find a complementary green that goes with the roof. And so you've got two entry doors. You've got what I call the storefront entry, which is, if you're facing the building, would be on the right side. And then the arched opening is the apartment entry that goes to the second floor apartment. So our preference would be to paint those doors a complementary green that goes with the roof. And then we don't want to paint the trim a color that clashes. It was never my intent. That color came out not the right color when we put it on there. But we were looking for like a cream.
Are you saying that this, on this print?
Yeah, ignore that. We're not going to go with that because it clashes. It looks like it clashes with the brick.
It looks too much like the brick.
But what we would like to do is do a sort of a creamy beige or some kind of color that does not clash with the brick, but is not too far off of what's there.
Right.
This is a little pink looking, so I think we want to kind of get away from that a little bit. And then they painted these brackets kind of a pinkish purple color. I don't think we want to do that. I don't want too many colors going on there, but what we'd like to do is get the brackets, the bow bay projection trim, the storefront trim, and then the little brick mold around the windows to all be sort of a light cream that complements the brick without clashing with it, basically, is what we're looking to do. So that would be my ask, is that without getting into a specific color, would you trust that I would be able to paint this without, you know?
Do you have samples, you said?
Well, I do, but it's just basically Sherwin-Williams's paint chart, so there's 1,000 colors in there, so.
Pick one, hurry up.
That's the problem. We're not, I would love to study it a little bit more and come up with, but what my ask to you is, would you just trust that I'm not gonna do something crazy and paint it a color that either clashes with the brick or makes it look,
Hell no.
it's not gonna be too much different than what's there.
Well, I think what we can agree with is the principle, the idea of the color concept with a request to submit when you've selected it, and it can be via, whatever, email or whatever, that we could then get the actual one when you have it for approval.
But here's my other ask is, if I come up with a color and then all of a sudden it goes up to 50 degrees and I've got a painter available, I don't want to not paint the building, paint the trim because we're waiting on you guys to all get together.
Well, but I don't believe, what I'm asking or saying is not necessarily to be in person.
You're asking me to keep you in the loop?
If you send it to him and he sends it via email, we will look at the email and respond immediately.
Okay.
So it's not wait.
So we're not waiting a month. Because if we do that, it'll be spring before we get it.
We're just looking, and I think in principle of what you're talking about color-wise, clarifying that this is not represented, but
it's not. I asked him to pull that out of there. I didn't want him to submit that. To actually
explaining that it's similar to this of what was there.
Of what was there, just freshened up and better.
I think more makes sense.
Conducive color.
I think the idea of the accent color, something that we're just going to describe as somewhat of an amber or burnt amber, seems like it fits with all of your color scheme, and it seems that it fits with the.
Wait, I think you just said he was going to.
Well, yeah, the burnt amber was going to go on the roof.
Oh, okay, so that's out. Sorry,
we were thinking.
So it's just this trim color, the roof being remaining as is, and then the darker doors in the same kind of
green palette.
We were originally thinking that we would like to see the terracotta roof look like a terracotta roof and not a painted green roof. It has a chalky green look to it. Mm-hmm. But after looking at it, it's manufactured into there. It's not like somebody painted it.
I had a green terracotta tile roof in my last house. Yes, it is.
And so we're not. And so what I don't want is a bunch of paint peeling off of it 2 years from now because we tried to paint terracotta, because that's probably not a good idea. So that's why we backtracked on it. We originally thought that maybe somebody had painted that, but after we got a chunk of it down off the roof and looked at it, it was obvious that it was manufactured in there. So that's part one of my ask. Part two is, and I don't have it on this, but on your handout, you can see Laura Bowman's old sign that was above the storefront door. The sizing on that is approximately 24 inches high by about 65 inches wide. Kramer's sign was almost exactly that same footprint, and he removed it himself when he moved out of there and moved across the street. So my other ask is, we have Aesthetics of Northern Kentucky, which is right now they're operating out of a storefront up on Highland Avenue near the cobblestone. She's going to be moving in here because she needs more space. She's rebranded herself and has a logo that her sign is white with a sort of a face that's, actually I got it.
Well, it's on
there? Yeah. So the shape of that, I drew a square around that, but really it would be a rectangle sign that would be the old footprint of the original sign that was there, but it would be white with black letters and her logo, so to speak. And it would go right back where the other one was.
What type of sign is it?
Oh, it's just like a hard surface flat sign. It's not like Pete's sign next door. It's not a Vox sign.
So it's
like
non-illuminated?
It's not illuminated, but I was going to ask how you guys felt about, because her hours run till like 9 o'clock at night. And I'm sure from a business and marketing standpoint, she'd like people to be able to see that. if they're driving down the street. How do you feel about me eliminating that from below or above with like some little lighting or some little downlights or something that would not obtrusive, maybe just the sign portion of it? I mean, we haven't really thought that through yet, but I'm sure she's gonna ask, hey, is there a way to... What I don't want to get into is wiring and installing and doing a big box type sign that lights up. I'm trying to, we're on a tight budget, and if we put a nice flat sign on there that was similar to what was there, but maybe try to figure out some way to eliminate it. So I don't know if it's downlights up in the soffit that would shine straight down or what, but maybe there's an answer there.
It's a little unclear. This is just personal take. So what is permissible by zoning is really their purview, right?
Right.
As far as the areas and everything else. When I look at this, my initial reaction would be, I would see the signage overhead of the door, that ideally it would actually extend all the way to align with the edges of those existing transit, right?
Right.
Assuming that amount of surface area would be fine, versus this one that used to not quite match. And the way I would see this, I was asked, it would be like, put the aesthetics of Northern Kentucky nicely in that sign, and the wording, the lettering could be bigger, and that would be, that would help. And then this really interesting graphic of the face that seems to be this sort of single line drawing as a thing that could be on the window of this sidewalk, just because it would, one, make everything feel bigger and actually work proportionally better with the fact that you've got this thing that's kind of like, that works very nicely rectangular and fits very well over that. And that is like nicely vertical and fits well on that. Whereas when you put the two together and you put it into this rectangular sign, it's just going to end up being this long thing with dead space because of the size of the relationship. Just saying that would be what I would
We don't
approach it
have
as.
to decide that tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, my time frame is probably trying to get her in there like mid-January. So we could always table that, and I can come back to you.
I think you need to
with
have
a specific on the sign.
signage.
We need to get electric
Want
somewhere. Where we're thinking about putting the light.
Yeah, my preference would be to not have like any kind of conduit or anything on the front of the building or anything like that. I really think the best option would be to put something like some downlights up, recessed in the soffit maybe or something that would shine straight down.
I don't know if that would illuminate the sign.
Yeah, I don't think you'll get
That'll be
enough
difficult.
light
Too
and need
far.
something
It could be.
facing it.
It would be difficult.
Well, could we,
Is this office finished? Are you still working on
I'm still working on it. I probably got a month and a half to go yet.
it? Can you rough a wire out below that window?
Easily. I mean,
Can you put a
that's a no-brainer.
gooseneck light or something there?
That would be seemingly the most keeping with the building.
Um,
Me too, I don't know.
So,
Who cares?
so the paint deal, I could just get some colors together and then send an email and maybe go through Kevin.
Yeah, but we would have to make a motion to set those.
We can make
parameters.
I think we could make a motion to agree to the idea, the color that is, how do we want to word this? I mean, cream, similar nature to the existing, will be approved upon submission, or reviewed upon submission, I guess is the way to put it, right?
Yeah, I would just like maybe say, warm cream color for the trim, green for the doors and whatever, actual colors to be submitted, just so that at least Kevin would know.
Understand what we're trying to do, yeah. We're
Yes.
gonna let you open it up this time.
I was about to get in there. I was like, it sounds like we're doing a motion, but it's not. So, kind of pointing to the gallery again. I would give you the packet, but
Oh, he's got it right
yes, I would give you the packet, but the changes on here would not reflect that. So,
I mean, that's the changes? Is that what I'm looking
It's
at?
not a bad looking, no, this is not the changes, this is the existing building.
building,
I'm
I
not
say, it looks
deviating
the
too
same.
far from what's there.
Gotcha.
So the
Yeah.
roof pretty much stays as is. And
Yeah.
then we're looking for a complementary green for each of these two doors and a trim color that's gonna kind of offset the trim without clashing with the brick.
Framers was also
I
the
like
same
that.
here.
Yeah, that looks very similar.
finding trim
with
to
the
go with that
uniqueness
yellow
of the
brick is very
historic
hard.
I have a
feel.
question. Is there a reason why you don't want signs perpendicular to buildings?
That isn't true. No.
Oh.
I would say like if that is quite
No,
obvious.
right, I didn't know
So
if
he-
it, because
so
wouldn't that
the
make
current
more
sign
sense?
right now fits
Yeah,
kind of
especially
within
with
the
driving
range.
by.
He's talking
Yeah,
about
exactly.
everything
Nothing-
that's
you
over
don't want
there.
anything.
We,
Yeah.
the
And then
tenant
just
and I
be
had talked about
symmetric,
that.
yeah,
And I don't think it's,
Essentially
budget wise,
makes
I'm not
sense.
sure
Oh,
it's
So
any
like
good
he's talking about
budget
the
right
sign
now.
that
Things
extends
she's
over a
kind
It'll
of,
probably be less
Right.
than that. I mean, because people will do
Yes,
those
he
like
mentioned
that way.
so you're talking about having something
She could do
projected
the
off
face
Yeah.
over into the
hanging
window.
off the building.
Yeah, you're right, that would.
Will we maybe go down that road later?
That square
Well,
foot.
it's usually going to be.
Do you have an extra
Not here,
image
if
of
you're in
that?
a tight street.
An extra one of
Of
that?
It's a lot
this,
easier for people to find you.
right here,
I'm,
I would
yeah,
have to take off the contact
I
information.
guess
That's
it could be,
okay.
I just,
Just the image is what I'd like.
Oh, if you go by her building
Yeah.
on Highland Avenue, she does have her sign and her stuff on it, and she also has it on her Facebook.
Yeah,
She-
right there on the
Right
Oh,
on,
okay.
yeah, right down
Just
by
to show
Mayor
people.
Brown. So
Okay.
just as an aside.
She's
just
right in
to
that
really
building
Get
as
into
well,
you,
so.
your purview yet, but I'm sure it's gonna become a thing in the future, if, especially if the city does what they're talking about doing, coming out of the parking lot in the back,
Everyone good?
the village
Yes,
players,
thank you.
Subway building. But I've got probably the only access closest to that intersection right now, coming out of that parking lot. And I'm putting some money into eliminating that stairway. And there's some additional expense that I'm going through. So I'm not looking to spend an exorbitant amount of money on this thing right now, because I'm trying to do the things that have to be done, not the things that I would like to have done.
Wouldn't the signage be your tenant's expense?
It is, other than she's kind of a new small business, and we're trying, I'm a new, this is my first go-around as a commercial property owner, and so we're both trying to help each other. What I want is for her to get in there and be successful and grow and thrive, and I need a tenant, so it kind of works for both of us. And it was ideal because it was a dentist office and it had all the sinks, so it lends itself to her use. And so but I got into a lot of rejiggering the plumbing underneath because it was 100 years old, and it was like a spider web of pipes and lines. And so there was when we started knocking around on the building doing some demo, a lot of that stuff came loose, and then it started leaking. So I'm not looking to spend like incredible amounts of money on. So I'm looking for the simplest, what's the simplest way for me to get this thing looking good and get her in there, and then I'm shooting for an apartment tenant up above. So, and I'm trying to do right by the city by cleaning up the steps coming up, which are mine, but they've been neglected for the last 30 years. And now that thing's been repaved, I got traffic coming up through there now on a daily basis. I mean, the people are starting to figure out, oh, that's all paved down there, it's real nice, I can go down there and park. But now they're all coming up between my steps, and now I'm scared to death somebody's gonna get hurt. So now I'm putting lighting out there and doing all kinds of things on the side of the building too, so.
Is there any questions from the gallery? Comments?
Thank you, Grace.
You guys may make a
Anybody
motion.
want to make a motion? You're on to something now. Color concept.
Well, I guess I will make a motion for the applicant to submit, I guess we approve painting of the trim in the bay window and the doors, provided the applicant submits actual paint samples for the trim and windows, which will be a warm cream color to complement medium to dark green to complement the green of the brick. Additionally, applicant will, well, we'll skip the signage because you're gonna have to come back.
I'm gonna have to come back anyway, and what in between now and then, she and I may negotiate an agreement on the sign where she might come back and say, you know what, I'll put money into that.
I think we're just noting that signage is not being for you.
Right, but
Signage will be.
my fear was that we weren't gonna be able to reuse that footprint or something crazy like that, so I just wanted to be able to be clear that we could do that if we wanted to.
And no change will be made to the roof.
Sherry, did you?
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Who's second? Very good. Who's second? Awesome.
Thank you.
Rough a wire in there while it's still torn up inside.
Yeah. Definitely.
Mark, would you like to make a motion to adjourn?
I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
All right.
I was gonna say, maybe,
Yeah, but,